And good morning from the quirky Platform 7 here at Inverness. Well, of course, I'm not catching a train from Platform 7. Not many people do. Today I'm going to be riding on an HST because, of course, you've now got to go to Scotland if you want to ride one, so maybe have one last go riding an HST up here in Scotland. So yes, an Inter7City set is on its way over from Aberdeen as we speak. It'll due in here at about 20 past 12, and then we're going to be on the 12:48, and I'm going to go first class to Perth, as I think we really need to enjoy those first class seats available in these Inter7City sets, and if you've not seen them before, you're in for a treat. So of course, one of the bonuses of riding the Inter7City set from Inverness to Perth is that we'll also enjoy some fantastic views, if the weather holds, of the Highland main line. So yeah, let's get down to Inverness station, which is obviously a bit further along here, and then we'll jump on the train and see how it goes. Now, Inverness is a terminus station in a kind of Y shape, so these near platforms here, they peel away to go to Kyle of Lacouch and the far north line, Wycombe Thurso, and then in the far distance there, as you can see, the Caledonian Sleeper, and also all the trains going southbound to Glasgow, Edinburgh and Perth. Now, I understand there are some plans to turn this into a through station, but I think I'd put that one in the box marked "I'll believe it when I see it." Anyway, I quite like Inverness station as it stands.
The concourse here at Inverness does feature a shop, a travel centre and a waiting room. There's also a pub and a Costa coffee shop, and in the centre you'll also find ticket machines. When you step outside, the modern entrance is flanked by the Royal Highland Hotel and the old Highland Railway offices. Back inside, I bought myself a coffee in Costa, and myself and other travellers there noted our train had changed from being the 12:48 to Perth to being the 12:48 to Pitlochry. So as the train worked in, we were all reminded by the staff that flooding south of Pitlochry meant we were to swap to rail replacement buses for our final leg to Perth. Something else I noticed walking up the train was that the exterior was filthy. The windows were pretty much opaque. Anyway, I'll deal with that later. First up, let's have a look at the second class offering on the train. Through this door there's some reservable cycle spaces with a total of 6 spaces available. And beyond, the second class seats have a very pleasant blue tartan effect moquette. Past the Intercity 7 map and the accessible toilet are more very nicely presented areas. This ScotRail refurb certainly makes the most of the old Mark III's interior. I think they've done a very good job. Of course, the Inter7City Cafe probably died during COVID, and it will certainly never return. But beyond that, through the hallowed portal is the first class section, already supplied with water and snacks on a help-yourself basis. I'll look more closely at the first class seats a bit later, but now I know where I'm sitting, and with still 10 minutes to go before departure, Johnny's going back onto the platform to clean the window with paper towels and water, so whilst he's away, let's have a look at the route. At the start, we'll head out northeast until we cross the River Nairn on the Culloden Viaduct. Then we can swing southbound through Carbridge and Aviemore, on past Kingussie, Newtonmore and Dalwhinnie. Just beyond Dalwhinnie, we complete the climb through the Drumochter Pass, and then we descend to Pitlochry and finally, maybe, Perth. This journey by rail is 190 kilometres or 118 miles long, and has been scheduled to take 2 hours and 15 minutes, which would give a pretty decent average speed of over 50 miles per hour. Of course, in this weather, who knows how long it's going to take, or indeed, how far we're going to get. Well, at least my bit of the window is a little cleaner now. Right, this is a single seat which features a fold-up part to the table and oceans of legroom. Over there is a bank of 4 seats clustered around a table which also has high-level power supplies. And rather than blinds, there's some rather tasteful curtains. Back at my seat, there's time to play with the recline, and then we are off, heading out into a very wild and wet afternoon in the Highlands. Still, there's a bit of sun for the camera to contend with for now, but I don't think we're going to see much of that for the rest of the day. Soon we're going around the 29-arch Culloden Viaduct with the River Nairn far below us. And now we can set about travelling in a slightly more southerly direction. Two viaducts dominate the village of Tomerton, the most impressive being the Findhorn Viaduct, which is made of lattice steel supported by granite piers. Shortly after crossing the River Findhorn, we've completed our first climb to Slocht Summit, where the line is now 401 metres or 1,315 feet above sea level. I must say I'm feeling pretty smug that I took the trouble to clean my window at Inverness. Once over the river, Carbridge is our first stop. The station has two platforms as it acts as a passing loop on this single-tracked railway. Well, it might be a bit clanky when we're riding along at speed, but this old HST set can still make decent progress through this Highland countryside. Now, back in the day, they used to be signed off for 125 mph running, but these days they're limited to just 100 mph. Mind you, there's not really any faster track in Scotland on their routes anyway. As we roll into Aviemore, it's great to see that at least for now, the service is spot on time. As it stands, we're still due to terminate at Pitlochry for the dreaded rail replacement bus. It's about now that the train manager reminds us that there's water and biscuits on the table that we can help ourselves to, so I go and grab a couple for myself. As you'd expect, there's a lot of tourist infrastructure in the environs of Aviemore, as it's one of the main resorts for the Cairngorms National Park. Stepping up from my seat and through, the connecting door has failed to close, which is making the journey quite a lot noisier than it could have been. And, looking through, there's the old luggage compartment of this ageing power car. Indeed, it is very noisy and bumpy up here at the front over the bogies. Once across the burn and the road, we're into Kingoose's lovely station. It is the work of William Roberts and replaced the original station, which dated from 1863. The sky's getting a lot darker now as we toddle on to Kingoose's near neighbour and shinty arch-rival, Newtonmore. You know, I'd really love to go and see some shinty being played. That is a very tough sport indeed. Now, the blue building behind the platform is the signal box Holiday Home, but don't be fooled, this isn't an old signal box. It was just built that way in 2004 so that the living room could enjoy the views over the railway. And as we leave, the old station still sits behind a hedge. And yes, it's another Roberts design from 1893 for the Highland Railway. When we cross over the Spey, we get a taster of all the water we're going to get to see on the journey ahead, and the sky continues to darken. We're climbing steadily now beside the River Truim on our way to the summit of the line at the Drumochter Pass. The boundary between the river itself and the surrounding fields is becoming increasingly blurred as the flooding here becomes more evident. I'm not surprised that the line is currently closed further south. Judging by how much water there is up here, there's surely even more down the valley towards Pitlochry. Mind you, despite all this dire weather, the train has managed to maintain pace, and we're only about 4 minutes late coming into Dalwhinnie. Upon leaving the station, it's soon a case of water, water everywhere. And the hillsides are soon striped with short-term rivulets of water cascading down. It's somewhere around here that we top Drumochter summit, and the line-side rivers begin to flow in the opposite direction as we commence our descent. The River Garry will be our travelling companion now until we both meet the River Tummel at Pitlochry. The train manager announces that we've been cleared to continue on to Perth, albeit at a reduced speed. This is greeted as very good news by everyone in first class, and fingers begin to tap on phones as people try to work out their best options for onward travel from Perth. That river, although it's still quite young, is looking very swollen with all the runoff. I'm very pleased to be behind the glass of this Mark III coach and sinking comfortably into my first class seat. Mind you, this really is spectacular weather. We cross the River Garry on one of the strewn bridges, the other hidden below being the road bridge that passes through one of the railway bridge arches. As the A9 passes overhead, it really does feel dark in the valley of the River Garry. I really don't think we'll be seeing the sun again today. Pitlochry is a lovely station. The northbound side that we can see is a beautiful wooden structure very reminiscent of Aviemore further up the line, and the unseen stone-built station on the other side is another by Highland Railway architect William Roberts. We've left Pitlochry now 25 minutes late, and we've been warned that we'll be slow running down to Perth. Indeed, the floodwaters have receded just enough for ours to be the first train that has passed this way for a number of hours. And I sit here quietly hoping that the railway engineers have made the right choice letting us carry on through this flooded landscape. The Tummel has joined the Tay, and this mighty river will now flow out through Perth and Dundee and then on into the North Sea. I must say, all the water makes for quite a spectacular view from the train. This is not the journey I was expecting. I thought the HST would be the star of this video. We have to cross the swollen River Tay on the wonderful Dalgeese Viaduct, which itself dates from 1863. When this portion of the line was opened by the Inverness and Perth Junction Railway. The railway is now sitting on an embankment above the floodplain, the main river being on the other side of the train. Just before Dunkeld and Burnham, we pass over what is now the torrent of the River Braan, and then we meet another Inter7City HST set which is tentatively making its way north. As we're clear of the flood risk now, our train can get a bit of a wriggle on the last run into Perth. My first class ticket with the senior railcard discount came in at just £29.70, which is a pretty good deal in my estimation, and I thought ScotRail did a great job getting us into Perth. We finally arrived with a delay of only 33 minutes. And there it is, power car 43034, which entered service in 1976 and is therefore now in its 50th year of operation. Thanks to you and all your sisters for so many great journeys over the years. Now all I have to do is exit the station and find my hotel. Now we'll have a closer look at Perth Station in a future video, so I'm just going to head out across the city and I'll see you when I get there.
And welcome to my hotel here in Perth. So, what did you think of that run then, Inverness to Perth? It was really comfortable, those seats are lovely, and yeah, obviously the weather was particularly bad and we were all ready to catch the bus at Pitlochry, and then she just came through 10 or 15 minutes before we were due to get there saying she'd had a phone call and our train was going through to Perth. So we all did a little cheer and then we got through to Perth. Now, final thoughts on these Inter7City HST sets. The way that they were refurbished, the design of both the second and the first class areas, brilliantly done. Very good piece of work. Of course, these trains now getting a bit old and actually not really complying with a lot of the more modern safety aspects, especially for the driving crew. So good luck to them and a fond farewell to them from me. So I hope you enjoyed what is probably my last ride on the Intercity 125 HST set, and yeah, certainly probably the last one on the channel. So thank you very much for watching this one. I hope you enjoyed it, and if you did, then do like and subscribe, or indeed, as you've seen scrolling below here as I've been talking, you could become a member and then get early access to videos like this, and also some taster videos and posts that happen much more in real time as I travel around the UK and Europe. But even if you do none of that, thank you so much for watching this one, and I look forward to seeing you next time. Johnny Hoover Travels.